I'm Jacob Mullins. I'm the organizer of VR Tuesday. Thank you for coming. This is the first one, so thank you very much. Um, the focus of this is really on the kind of the business side, the money side of the VR and AR industries. You know, there's a lot of activity and a lot of hype going into it over the past few years. And personally, I come from it from more of a financial side and figuring out business models and investment, and so that's kind of what we're going to focus on. It's meant to be a community-driven event, so I'll put together logistics, but as people have ideas and concepts and speakers and venues, actually we're going to need venues in the future also, to host us, let me know. I'm Jacob at VR Tuesday, and I would love to have all of you involved. So a few things to kick it off. Oh yeah, that's me. So I want to introduce our hosts tonight. Thank you very much, Orange, for hosting us. And so I'll introduce Guillaume Payan, who is a principal at Orange Silicon Valley, focusing on investments, and has made some investments in virtual reality.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really excited about the picture. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Hi guys. So I work for Orange. We are a telecommunication company. We operate in Europe, Africa, and Middle East. Have roughly 270 million customers. Here you're at Orange Silicon Valley, so our Bay Area office. Our goal here is to find companies to work with or invest in. We have different initiatives for that. Two of those are Orange Digital Ventures, an investment fund, $100 million. We invested last year in one VR company called Weaver, and they have a small office right there. We love them. Really cool guys. We also have another program, an accelerator program called Orange Fab. 3 months, 20K mentors, demo days here and in Paris. So we fly all the startups to Paris, 2 seasons per year. And you can apply on orangefab.com. And this particular season, the season 7 just started. And one of the companies that's part of the new batch is really relevant to the topic we're going to be discussing tonight because they're providing a 360 video app. It's Pi. And I think they should introduce themselves really quickly. Anyway, welcome to Orange.
Thank you so much, Guillaume. Yeah, we moved in last Friday, and needless to say, we really like it here. So my name is Cece.
And I'm Jacob.
And yeah, we're two of the co-founders of Pi, and we are a 360 video platform for user-generated 360 video content. Our other co-founders and colleagues are in the office just there getting some stuff done because we're on a tight schedule. So when you think of 360 video, you probably think of a big GoPro rig or some fancy 30K Facebook camera, but you may not think of this. This is Insta360 Nano, a tiny camera that can clip directly onto your iPhone, and it's part of a movement that we're part of, which is making the creation of 360 video accessible to all. So we're building Pi, which will be launching mid-November later this year, as a place to easily edit, upload, and share simple 360 stories with your friends and followers. A lot is changing on a weekly, maybe even daily basis in the 360 video market. We're a very small team, we're lean, and our strategy is to be the fastest to respond to what's happening next.
Yeah, just add if you're there may be startup people in the audience, and I would definitely check out orangefab.com. Orange provides lots of resources and help for people like you, so go for it. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. We're going to get started with our speakers, first of our speakers. So what we're going to start with is a good friend of mine. His name's Mick Eddy. He is the head of corporate business development and one of the very early employees at Osterhout Design Group, ODG. For those of you who haven't heard of them, they've been pioneering AR technology and glasses for 10, 15 years. And so I'll let him kind of get into it himself. But here is Mick Eddy from ODG.
All right, thanks for having me, Jacob. So how many of you actually have heard of ODG? As Jacob said, I've been working at ODG for about 7 years. I'm going to kind of run you through a high-level sort of company profile and then open it up to sort of questions. But ODG has been around since 1999. Ralph Osterhout, our founder, is a brilliant sort of inventor. This is his 13th company. He actually was one of the inventors of the PVS-7 night vision goggles in 1985. So he's been working in Headworn for 30 plus years. And his dream has always been to bring sort of computing to the eye level. So I'm going to talk more about augmented reality here. I think that at some point in time, augmented and virtual reality kind of converge, and you actually have a device that can do both. As sort of computing technology allows for it, nanotechnology as well as sort of Moore's law. I believe that that will actually converge maybe in the next 5 or 10 years. So I don't think I need to convince you guys, but I do think that sort of the next mobile platform is head-worn. All of your sensors are here on your head. The value proposition of having a large immersive screen, with that's capable of sort of very high computational sort of power is going to be very compelling to a lot of end users. So we've seen obviously more mobility, from the desktop computer to the laptop, then now to the mobile phone, and I really do believe that sort of the next mobile computer is going to be head-worn. There's been a number of reports out there, from DigiCapital to Goldman Sachs to recently to Merrill Lynch. Whether you believe the number's 150 billion or 120 billion, I think we all can agree that it's going to be a massive market, and there's going to be billions of units shipped in the next decade or so. So a little bit about ODG. So as I said, our roots are sort of more in the military. Ralph Osterhout, PVS-7 night vision goggles in the mid '80s. He also pioneered putting display systems into scuba diving masks, being able to actually see, how much what your depth is, how much time you've been down underneath the water, what sort of decompression you need to have going up. So he's put Copen displays back in the '90s into scuba diving masks. As far as ODG, I've been in ODG since 2009. The first couple of glasses that we actually developed were for the DoD. So from 2009 to 2012, roughly, we developed 5 different iterations of glasses for Department of Defense. They had specific use cases for sort of situational awareness, blue force tracking, pulling in drone feeds was a big one, and we tried everything from holographic waveguides to different sort of types of lighting engines, and we actually decided that the most cost-effective way of producing an image into the eye was using an LCOS system that was mirrored, folded mirrored approach. And so that's what we've been working on today. We're actually on our 7th generation of glasses. So this is our R7. We have designs for up to 3 more, which are more consumer-facing, which I'll get into, and I'll get into more specifics on actually what these are comprised of. So this is our roadmap. So the R6, the 6th generation of glasses, we actually sold from basically the 1st generation to the 6th generation. We sold patents to Microsoft that became part of the HoloLens. That was, so the optical system you see is partially based on what we sold. We took that money, reinvested back into the company in 2013, and we developed the R7. We decided to go away from government because of sequestration. So it became very difficult to get contracts, and we decided that we'd focus on enterprise and B2B. And so this is the R7. We're in production today on the R7. Basically what you have in here is everything you have in a cell phone. So you have a quad-core processor by Snapdragon 805, which is in the S6. It doesn't catch on fire, so that's a good thing. You have IMU, Bluetooth, GPS, Wi-Fi, everything you have in a cell phone minus the LTE connection, you have in this set of glasses. So fully self-contained. We pride ourselves on very high optical quality, 720p to both eyes. This has a 30-degree field of view. We have designs up to 95-degree field of view. It's just a matter of sort of trade-offs, standoff versus, and also cost. So we do have, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but we showed last year at CES, we showed our R9 prototype, which was 52-degree field of view, which is basically the equivalent of a 105-inch screen at about 10 feet, 4K resolution. So that's sort of more of a prosumer device. This is an enterprise device. So we're eventually sort of itching our way into the consumer markets. And so you see there R8. We're going to show the R8 and the R10 actually at CES this year. These are, as far as price point, these are more consumer friendly and more of a consumer viable product. So I kind of talked about this already, but this is the R7 here. This is the enterprise focused set of glasses. We're selling to big customers like FedEx. We're selling to Airbus, Boeing, big enterprise global 1000s that are using it for various things, telepresence, telemedicine. Telepresence is a big one. So assisted reality, being able to actually look at the streaming video and have a subject matter expert walk you through repair and maintenance, walk you through medical triage. So telepresence is a big use case for us. Also in the healthcare industry, that's one of our largest verticals. But the R7 is a very capable product. I mean, like I said, it has a quad core built into it. It has IMU for positional head tracking, forward-facing camera, 4 megapixels, so it's very good, very high frame rate, and so good in low light. But also, and then you may ask, how do you control it? So we've actually built a ring mouse that you put on your finger. This is all standard Android, by the way, so any Android programmer that you can develop on this set of glasses pretty seamlessly. We also have an SDK. But the ring mouse is one method for controlling it. You put it on your finger. I have one here. I can show you guys later. It has an IMU built into it, so you can also do gestures. We have a keyboard. We also have an application we built for iOS and Android. And we also have buttons on the glasses. So you have your standard back menu power. You actually have a crucial tech that you can control it with as well here. And so those are sort of the general sort of input methods. And then let's go to the R. This is the R9 and the R8 on the. So the R. So the R9 is the larger looking one, and the R8 is with the red sort of trim on it. The R8 is the R9 is actually the larger one. The R8 is the one with the red trim. But we have the prosumer device, which very immersive, high sort of very 52-degree field of view. I'll show you a demo here shortly that we showed it at AWE. But these are sort of more the prosumer and the consumer sort of designs. The design will probably change, but the R8 itself is actually less than 4 ounces. The R7 here is about 5.5 ounces. But we've studied ergonomics and human factors, and it actually fits pretty well, and it's comfortable wearing for all-day use, which we have customers doing that today. But this is a video that we showed at AWE, Augmented World Expo, that we won actually Best in Show. So this is looking through the lens of the R9. Yeah, the R9. So this is a demo that we did at AWE, and this is, I'm not sure if you attended, but this is basically what you saw, and this is a mixed reality sort of experience. One interesting thing I did talk about the convergence of sort of AR and VR. We actually do have a patent around snapping on a shroud on top of the glasses, so you can actually kind of go from an AR to a VR experience. Our lenses here are magnetics; they pop off. You can put more opaque ones on, so interesting. We are able to leverage a lot of the content that's being created around VR and show that in our glasses in a meaningful way. Back to the use cases real quick. I know I only have a minute or so, but we talked sort of at a high level about these. But telepresence is probably one of the largest. Assisted reality, looking at something like a jet engine and recognizing it, and then being able to pull up manuals that are relevant to it to repair it. That's something that Boeing's working on today. So object recognition and sort of also assisting your reality and pulling up menus and checklists and procedural things. Being a heads-up display system, just being able to be hands-free and work on things and have a large immersive display you can see through. 3D visualization, so working with different types of software, CAD, different things, being able to actually look at something you design and see and tweak it in 3D and sort of visualize it. And then augmented reality being sort of the holy grail, which we're doing today with a number of our partners. This is sort of some of the use cases and some of the customers that we have today. It sort of speaks to itself, but I mean, it's a platform, so it can be applied to all kinds of different industry. And it's like a cell phone. It's a platform, so we have an SDK where we enable developers to go create these experiences. We're not actually producing the software experiences, and they're able to actually create compelling experiences that increase productivity for the end user. So I was going to demo, but I ran out of time. I can show you.
Sweet.
Show you guys in person.
Awesome. Thanks, Mick. All right. Who's got questions? Questions for the AR expert? Try to get you the mic.
Any plans to integrate depth sensing cameras for the ODG classes anytime soon?
Yeah, in the R9, we actually have modules. So we're actually gonna, if you can see here on the design, we have a snap-on module where you can actually integrate. See on the R9 there with the pogo pins. So that will actually we'll be able to put depth. Various vendors will be able to put their depth solution on the glasses. It's very important. We understand that.
Questions? We got one in the back here.
Hey, I just had a question about whether any of your glasses or others that are on the market, because I'm just not super familiar, can take any readings of like biometrics from the person who's actually doing the viewing, who's wearing them. So it's like understanding the pulse or the heart rate, things like that.
Yeah. So actually, for some of our first government contracts were around biometrics. So it was first voice, being able to put a microphone array on the side and the temples, and then be able to pick up, in a very noisy situation, a number of different voices. Then it went to facial recognition. I was actually going to demo facial recognition today, but unfortunately, I didn't. The USB dongle didn't work. Long story, but yeah. So biometric capture was actually one of our first couple of first real military use, and so I know there's some privacy concerns around it, obviously with Google Glass and whatnot, but we can absolutely do that. There's some great software out there. Images is one, and so it's something that we've actually done in the past. And I forget. I think you had a second question.
Tony's got a question.
So how do you stack up relative to the big competitors coming out now? The AR is getting crowded, and we got Microsoft, Magic Leap, Meta. You guys have been around longer than any of these folks, really, right? So where do you think your big advantages are right now relative to them?
We have a product today we're shipping in volume. So I mean that's one. The other one is we're extremely portable, and so it can be used outdoors. It can be used anywhere. We don't have to have anything tethered to it. And also our optics are very, they're high resolution. We have a large field of view in the in the R9. So I would say sort of portability, mobility, and optical quality.
All right, got a question here.
Okay, thanks, Mick, for the talk. Now, like we've seen, the iPhone 7 didn't really introduce any significant improvements, and people are not incentivized to switch or to buy the new hardware. And with AR and VR, all of these, just like Tony mentioned, there is all of these players, and even Intel and Qualcomm are offering platforms that are open source, so that the hardware will become somewhat commoditized. So like the early PC days, anybody can make an AR headset or whatnot. But still, at the consumer side, what is the kind of killer app? Why would people even go to that route? Yes, we can see a lot of cool things, but is it necessary? And what is OTG's perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think VR is very easy to replicate. I think if you look at AR is very, very hard, especially optically. The ability to see through and from an optical standpoint, it's much more challenging. I think that the real advantage to AR is it's a whole new way of displaying information, and I think that essentially it's a whole way new of consuming information as well. So you're going to be able to. It's almost I sort of liken it to the internet. I think it's going to revolutionize the way that we consume and display information. And so I think as opposed to being using a cell phone and being sort of head down and looking and being stuck in this world, now you bring it up to the eye level, and now you're able to actually look around. You're able to maintain a presence with what's happening around you. And so I think that's a whole new way of sort of consuming information. And I think that from an optical standpoint, it's extremely challenging. You have companies that are throwing billions of dollars literally at it, and they still can't figure out how to create the right optical solution.
A quick question: do you have rough estimate dates of when the R8 and R9 will be released?
We have already developed the technology. It's a matter of market timing. So I mean, we showed the R8 we showed the R9 at CES last year, and then the R8 will show again. It will show this year at CES. But it's the right partnerships need to be in place to go after the consumer, and we need to. It's all about timing the market right. We don't want to be like Google Glass, where we went after the consumer when the consumer market wasn't there.
Yeah,
Yes, Mike.
hi. I just had a simple question. What's the use case for? I saw up on the screen you mentioned entertainment, and I was just wondering what the use cases are for your device around entertainment.
Yeah, for the consumer stuff, I mean, for the consumer, entertainment is very appealing. Obviously, video consumption, streaming, 360-degree video. I think, and then also leveraging some of the VR experiences that are out there today. And I mean, you've seen also with Pokemon Go, which I don't think is true AR, but at the same time, if you look at like user engagement at Pokemon Go, initially that was like over 50 minutes per session. You look at Facebook, you're at like 30 minutes or so roughly. And so, there's new types of use cases that are emerging. I do think, initially it might be just for the viewing of a large immersive sort of screen that's mobile, but that will all sort of change as more and more content gets created.
All right. Let's give it up for Mick Eddy and Osterhout Design Group. Thank you. And I think you'll be around after as well with the headset in case people want to come up and check it out. Thank you, Mick, very much. Next up, we're going to have PK go. So PK, I've known, I guess not for too long, but a few months, 6 months or so. Pretty excited about what they're up to. They're building a metrics platform, one like I've never seen before, and you guys probably may have. So PK was at Appcelerator for a number of years, building out their enterprise team, and now he's on his own. So introducing co-founder and CEO, PK.
Yes, hi. Thanks, Jacob. So I am Prithvi Kandanda, but PK for short. Everybody tends to call me PK because it's easier. So Ease is essentially a startup. We've been around for a year and a half now. The founding team came together from a company called Appcelerator, like Jacob mentioned. I was a director of enterprise mobile solutions there. My co-founder was the head of R&D and experience design at Appcelerator, and it was around the time the DK1 came out, and we immediately knew that this is going to be transformative. And DK2 came out, and we said this is going to be it. So we decided to jump into VR, and as any startup, we've gone through quite a bit of change in our business and how we think about various things. So what you're seeing today is like I would say a 6-month version. And we went through Boost, which is a VR accelerator here in the Bay Area. We were Tribe 6, and that taught us a lot about how the whole ecosystem is evolving. So anyway, so today is essentially an actionable intelligence engine. So I'll tell you more about what that is. But before we go there, I think what is really important to kind of recognize is that we stand at an amazing period of time. Mark's gone ahead to call VR as the next transformational platform. But in the middle of all this euphoria, every single industry, every single sector is getting changed. And in the middle of all of this, we sometimes forget that this is a new way of humans to interact with technology, or humans interact with each other, right? So we believe that that is a fundamental opportunity for a company to build solutions around that problem set. So for a long time, we all know this, right? When web came out or when mobile came out, content is super important. That's what drives the entire ecosystem. So you have hardwares which won't be successful if the right content is not there, or if the content is not right, then consumers or enterprises won't adopt it. And it's just going to be like this for some time in the VR space, we believe. Primarily because it is still very complex. So in the middle of all this, what we believe is that you cannot have a good content developed unless you really are able to understand user behavior, like what did the person do, how did they react to that experience, and so on. So today we believe that most of the developers are flying kind of blind, and most of the most of the focus today is to making that content or the experience really work. You know, how do I not make my users sick in VR? How do I you know, change the way they interact with the content in general? So that's why we built Ease. So Ease is you know, essentially an experience analytics engine, which plugs into Unity or Unreal or Web, and the data then comes back into our machine learning based cloud platform where you're able to visualize what the user did. And I'll get into a little more detail on how that works. So we believe we are the only real-time actionable analytics engine, and there are different use cases where real-time is important. There are some use cases where real-time is not important, and we get into all of those details based on use cases. So imagine a scenario like this, right, which is a virtual reality showroom. So I'm going to go jump right in and show where it can be applied. And virtual reality showroom will become a reality, or if not, it is becoming a reality, right? So retail is one of the huge sectors which is poised for change. And this really brings in disruption into the way retailers do business today. You don't really have to stock inventory. And this is especially true in use cases where you have to stock large sets of inventory, and you know, you can reduce costs. So IKEA is a clear example. They've released a VR experience. There are tons of other retailers who are playing around with virtual reality as a shopping experience, and it is coming, right? So let me just go ahead and jump straight in and show you a video of an implementation which we did. So this was you know, done for a credit card company here in San Francisco, and they wanted to showcase a next generation retail experience to their customers. You know, what is possible. So what you're seeing on screen is somebody walking around you know, on an HTC Vive in an empty apartment, picking various items they want to buy for their apartment, visualizing how it looks, and then using a credit card to buy that particular item, right? So this is a really powerful use case for virtual reality. You know, imagine being able to visualize how your apartment would look like. And there are, I know, companies who are already selling the solutions in quite a bit of you know, number. There are interior home decorating companies who are selling virtual reality solutions on VR. So what you see here on screen is an actual implementation of our dashboard, which is cloud-based, and all the objects are embedded with these markers. And I'm going to pause it a little here, just explain what's going on. Um, so here, using our software, you're actually able to look at or understand what people are looking at. So at a very simplistic level, how many times did they actually look at an object? Where did they go within that experience? And then you know, things like what were the view to purchase conversion. So these are typical analytics which the customers want to understand. So what you're seeing here is a real-time journey map of that person walking around in VR. So so using this, you know, other simple things would be you can go back to a product sponsor and say, here are the number of times somebody actually looked at your product. So some of the other use cases are, let's say, in an automobile industry, right? So here, using our platform, you're able to see what a person looked at, for how long, where all did they spend time in that experience, and this is extremely important for a chief marketer. If you're walking around the car, then you know what parts of the car did you look at, and then you know what were the conversion metrics. So this is, you know, frankly, it's never been ever possible. So this is a new medium, and as a result, you needed to build a completely new platform to understand that data, so that you can ultimately understand user behavior. There's another example which is in real estate. So real estate is again a huge use case for VR. We're seeing a lot of different companies coming up with innovative business models in real estate. So using our software, you will actually be able to understand when people come into a high-end apartment, which is being sold in Manhattan, where did they go, how long did they spend in a particular part of the apartment, did the wife come back, that's a buying signal. And then understand aggregate user behavior as well as individual user behavior. So here's another example of where ease can be used, not only for virtual reality, but for integrating any user behavior data. So that could be, integrating video sources through a video camera, or through depth sensing cameras. You can integrate the data and then provide a security solution where, in this case, you're seeing a way for us to do facial recognition and trigger actions around incidents. So you could, understand things like, was there a luggage which was left unattended, for example. So the way we go to market today is essentially, deploying ease in different use cases, because as you can understand, fundamentally, the experience is completely different by individual use cases. So we're working with lighthouse accounts in different use cases, and then we're deploying and building dashboards for that use case. Eventually, we believe the ecosystem will be at a state where you'll be able to publicly deploy an SDK and then make it work for all experiences. But today we're frankly not there yet. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, PK. All right. Questions for PK and ease?
Hey, where did you get the image of the heat map on the Cadillac? Because were there actually people looking at a car with a VR headset or a 3D model of a car?
That's correct. So it is actually deployed in our dashboard. So if you saw the experience which I showed you on the retail, so it's just a screenshot of that experience.
So similar related question, is that based on your head position, those heat maps, or are you exploring eye tracking, which I know a number of companies are?
Yes, so again, great question. So the way it works, right, is just to explain, the way developers integrate our product is they would download our SDK or get access to our SDK and take our markers and drag and drop these markers into various objects and scenes you want to track and analyze. These markers have components which understand the user's field of view. Eye tracking is still not there in most of the HMDs, but it will come. And so once it does, then it will be very easy for us to get that exact pinpoint. But today we are doing it in a way which is software driven, and it's done very nicely. So we ended up filing a patent for it.
I see up there it's Unity, Unreal, and Web. Is that Web VR? And if so, what are some of the differences you're finding with analytics of native versus web?
Great question. Again, all implementations are different, and in Unity or Unreal, you'll have a lot more complex interactions, and the number of parameters which we measure in Unity or Unreal runs into hundreds of different data points. But in WebVR, it is not so yet. So we measure all the essential parts of what you want, like user interaction, user gaze, head position, all of that.
One other question also about the eye tracking technology. I'm just curious what your position is on privacy concerns related with that and how you're preparing for that.
Yeah, again, great question. I think that's a really important piece we should not forget. And one of our first deployments which we did, there was a lot of backlash because people started understanding that we're gathering data which is can be private. So all the experiences which we build, we divulge upfront that this is what we are collecting, and are you okay with it? If they're not okay, then we don't collect the data. The SDK, when it is getting deployed, also has provisions for the developer to have that choice. And frankly, it really depends on use cases. So, like in social VR, you don't want people collecting private data. If you're getting into a chat room with somebody, then you don't want any data going out. But in use cases like retail, where people don't mind giving you that data because it's useful for them. Like in the experience which we built, we were able to serve up content which was based on their person's preferences. He went and chose a blue couch, you'll be able to serve up content which is which matches that blue couch.
Yeah, thanks, PK. For you just mentioned that you're integrating with a game studio. Having been in the middleware industry, it's always been very hard to sell developers because they think they can build it themselves, and especially for game mechanics where you're changing the game experience. What's in ease that they couldn't build that made them integrate with you?
That's again a great question. So, so that's why I said it is still experimental. I think the whole project started because we had a joint vision of what's possible, and both the companies are still evaluating that. Like what's possible, and it's essentially trying to reimagine how a traditional game would look like. And they can build it on their own, but it'll take time. We spent almost a year and a half building this platform. So I don't know the full answer to that. We'll see how it shapes up, and then see whether it can be I would say spun off into a separate product. I don't know that yet. But yeah, game studios have traditionally always wanted to build things on their own.
Question over here.
Great presentation, PK. Thanks. Question is, you showed a couple of different examples which involve kind of collaborative decisions. One was the real estate example. The other was actually furnishing a piece of real estate. I'm wondering what thinking or roadmap items you have along how two people side by side could look at a piece of real estate together in virtual reality or furnish something together, or how one person might leave breadcrumbs for somebody to do it sequentially.
Yeah, again, I think it's a really good point. We will see an increase in collaborative experiences for sure. So I'll give you a few things we're working on. So we're working on a use case where somebody is going through a social VR platform. Okay, so you walked into a space and you're enjoying that space and you're going away from it. But one of the big problems is that when people go into those social spaces, they find themselves alone because there's not too many users yet. So one of our developers, what they're doing is they're using ease to create virtual users in that space, which kind of mimics or plays back the previous person's experience. So you don't feel alone, right? The other use case which I was telling Jacob about earlier is essentially in entertainment. So imagine a space which is private to you. It's your living room, for example, and you walk into that space and you're looking at your regular TV, but you're also looking at a way to consume different contents based on your preference. So ease in the background will start understanding what that user looks like, or what does he care about, and start serving up content on your TV from different video sources, from public video sources and so on. And also integrate 360-degree content or avatars and all of that in one space. And very soon you will want to have companies, so you'll invite people to come in and collaborate with you in that space. So it is coming, so Allspace is a great example where they're able to get people into a space and collaborate, or VR chat, or any of these companies. And I think that's going to be very explosive because people inherently want to be with others.
Cool. I'll end with one. So BK, you're on the leading edge of from what it looks like, large industries that are wanting metrics in their businesses. You give a car example, you have real estate example, and there's others around here. For creators in the space or for investors in the space, which are the big ones where the money is being funneled, kind of not experimental money, but actually sustainable money? Where would you spend your time out of these 8 or so industries that you're seeing?
Yeah, so like in any early platform plays, media and entertainment is going to be a huge deal for sure in the next 2 years, right? So you'll see all different forms of entertainment experiences coming up. What's also beginning to happen is that you're going to reimagine the way particular content is consumed. If you have not seen a music video in VR, please find one and see it or ask me. It is transformative. You'll start enjoying music like unlike you have ever done so, right? But similarly, every one of these sectors is getting transformed. So retail is definitely one of the big things which is coming. Real estate is the other big thing. Sports is the other massive opportunity where you have companies, like Virtually Live, Live Likes, Striver. They're all transforming the way you're consuming sports or getting even trained. It's not far off to imagine that you will actually have a sports trainer with you in VR coaching you and getting real-time feedback based on your biosensors. And it's not far away. I know companies who are starting to build that. So in the next 2 years, if things go well, you'll probably be doing that.
Awesome. Thank you, PK. Well, the next gentleman I'll introduce is with a company called Skylights. And he could probably do it better justice, but he's looking to reimagine entertainment while we're flying through the air. David and his team actually just graduated from the YC class this summer. So that's probably a whole experience he could share with a lot of us. But without further ado, I'll introduce David Deco, CEO and co-founder.
So, pleasure to be with you. And so Jacob contacted me and said, VR, AR, great space. You have a company that's very use case focused, and we do. And so I'll really concentrate the whole presentation on that specific aspect of the business. What we do is very simple. We're putting VR headsets on aircraft so that passengers can enjoy in-flight entertainment in a new way. That's what we're doing. And to understand how we got there, this is me in my plane. I was an airline pilot for 11 years, and I worked in the airline industry. I had also had 7 years as an airline exec. And I'm very business oriented. That's my number one thing. And my co-founder, unlike me, he's tech oriented. And so he was passionate about VR. He showed me my first VR experience at the time, transformational like it was for all of you. But my first reflex has been and has always been, okay, where do we go from this now? And where's the opportunity lie? And we circled back. We studied a variety of different things, and we actually came back to this. Came back to what I knew very well, which was airplanes. And here's why. You all know that there are 3 major hurdles to the mass adoption of VR and AR. And these are the 3 this is how I would structure it. One is, what is the killer use case that is going to compel people outside of Silicon Valley to actually change their behavior and adopt this new thing? And that's not easy. 2, do you have high quality content available? And you spoke about it. That's a bottleneck. And 3, is the timing right? And I heard that word being spoken previously by my colleague, but that's fundamental. What is the price point of these things, and what is the quality associated with these headsets? And you need to get that couple right. The interesting thing about airlines, and this is why we're doing this, is because in this very specific vertical, we can solve all of these problems. We live in a bubble where the killer use case is evident. People want to be entertained when they're on an aircraft and they have nothing else to do. They're captive passengers, and they may not be ready to try a Google Glass when they're on the ground, but they're certainly ready to wear a VR headset when they're flying for 11 hours. And we have these extraordinary airline distributors that one airline can give you access to 20, 30, 40 million long-haul passengers a year. So it really hits everybody. To the content side, we can begin by aggregating a content platform, although I hate that word there, a content, just a catalog, by starting by showing traditional content and leveraging the $300 billion Hollywood industry that is bringing out every single week movies that people want to see or TV series that people want to see, and use that as a basis to aggregate content around it. That's this time is VR environment content, is VR apps, is 360 videos, it's cinematic VR. And then finally, because you have a case where passengers are given this on a per-use basis, it's essentially free or very cheap on a per-use basis, it changes the unit economics. And we suddenly can afford very high quality, high cost hardware, and therefore to try to use that to give a good experience to passengers. So that's the point. And the point very clearly for us is to try and go as fast as we possibly can so that basically within the next couple years, regardless of what major airline carrier you use, you're given this on your aircraft. And ultimately, a big fraction of the 1.5 billion long-haul people who travel a year will discover what virtual reality is all about through this. And this is sit-back virtual reality entertainment. Okay, so now after that introduction passed, this is a picture of passengers in economy on an Air France flight. What they're doing is they're watching 2D and 3D movies that we've licensed on headsets that we've sourced and that actually we had to design, and that was an interesting story, and that run our software. And we've done 100 flights just like that one in partnership with 4 airlines, and we have about 10 more now lined up this fall for in-flight pilot campaigns that are going to continue. And we have our first contracts such that by December of this year, we'll be on 15 flights per day departing out of Paris and Istanbul for those passengers. So here's something that I know from the inside of the industry. Airlines hate these embedded screens even more than you do. They cost $20,000 each to an airline. They're obsolete on day one. And they're so heavy, they weigh roughly 1 to 1.5 tons on a wide body aircraft, that they cost the industry $1 billion in extra fuel cost just to fly them around. So, airlines have been looking for ways to get out of this for years. And there really is no good solution. It's this pain that has propelled the ultimately the wireless in-flight entertainment that we're starting to see, which is the solution of over-the-top streaming on bring your own devices. That's good. Now, it's very simple. Passengers on an aircraft that are stuck for 11 hours, it's a fantastic use case for VR. It's a fantastic use case for VR because we all know that VR enables to transcend any spatial constraints. And there are very few places on Earth where space is more constrained than on an aircraft. And so when you give the ability to somebody to escape his environment, to escape his flight, to forget that he's flying, it's very, very strong. And we're having great passenger engagement. The number one KPI that I'm following is the number of minutes that an average passenger uses skylights, and that's 235 today. That's 5 minutes below 4 hours, which is very good. And which is, by the way, longer than passengers engage with seat-back entertainment, the more usual stuff. And best of all, and that's my pitch to the airlines, but not to you, the airlines can begin by offering this right now without having to change a single bolt on the aircraft, by just coming on top with this thing, and then depending on what they want to do, give it for free to business and first class passengers, which is the usual case that they're thinking of, and rent it out to economy passengers as a first start before deploying it entirely on the aircraft. And I'll conclude with this, and I kind of spend a little bit of time with that on the suggestion of Jacob, which is to say that this is not as simple as buying a set of Oculus Rifts and then distributing it on an aircraft. I think the idea of VR on planes is as old an idea as VR itself. I can't count the number of stock photos that you've seen with VR headsets, every single different VR manufacturer taking a picture for marketing purposes of a guy on an aircraft watching this. And it's evident. But the hard thing about this thing is that it's actually really hard to do. And to do it, we've had to write our own CMS, content management software. We've had to license directly to the Hollywood studios, which are hard to handle. We've had to, after long thought and difficulty, we decided to design our own all-in-one VR headset because that's what we needed to have for this to actually work. And I'll be happily looking forward to what's going to come out in 2017. But that was an important one. And we've had to set up the ground and flight operations to make all of this work. And the way that we sell this to airlines is we essentially bundle all of that and sell it as a service to the airlines on a yearly basis. It's kind of a leasing model. So you have to kind of think of this as a vertical stack of activities, kind of go for VR if you wish. All right, and so if I go slightly into more detail, here's basically the kind of 6 big bricks that really constitute the Skylight stack. We've been at this for 18 months, and I'll just kind of go one by one. On the technology side, what we've needed, this is an intermediate slide. This is to show you what we're concentrating on, and everything else that we're outsourcing. So obviously not doing the content ourselves, we're happily outsourcing that. So if you have great VR content, we're happy to be your distributor. We've had to deal with the VR headset, and I'll come back to that space. We are outsourcing the whole servicing part, so cleaning, servicing, charging, packaging, loading and offloading on the aircraft at every single place in the world. And then, of course, the ultimate distribution is the airlines. So kind of going back on the different bricks. Hardware side, what we've needed and what we've always needed was a all-in-one VR headset. And you know today that on the market, you have these gaming headsets and you have the phone casings. But you don't have this third category, which is bound to come in 2017, which are these very light headsets that we need that will function on their own. And that's really what we've needed to do. And after going to Shenzhen, trying everything, we tried the R7, by the way, so that's why I was happy to listen about the R9 coming forward, or the R8. But we ultimately decided to do our own with the basic idea to make it very light, very comfortable, and that was the main thing. So that really what enabled us to go from 110 minutes of average usage time with this to 235 with that. That was key. Software side, so it's our own content management software to deal with the content licenses. Not fun to talk about. Content side, we did 2 things. We can piggyback the existing content licensing agreements that the airlines already have with intermediaries called CSPs, content service providers. And so we can use all of their 2D content and put it on a VR headset. And we also now have a worldwide direct distribution contract with 20th Century Fox and DreamWorks to be able to access their entire catalog, early window, HD. So as soon as something comes out of the movie theater, put it on an aircraft, basically 2 days afterwards, in 2D and in 3D, which is good. So that's the heart of our content, and that's what 95% of our passengers really do. And then now we're going to start aggregating extra content all around that, and that's 360-degree videos, cinematic VR, in-flight shopping. I mean, the ideas are limitless. What we're looking for is interesting content that people can use when they're sitting down on an aircraft, which is a constraint when you're doing VR. But that's an important one. Servicing side.
30 seconds.
Okay, we're done. Servicing side, we got operations Paris, Rome, and Istanbul, and distribution side. This is the traction. Let me just show you. The reception has been very good, ultimately, and the reason is very simple: is because airlines are looking for ways out of the current situation, and what we are hoping for very, very strongly is within the next 12 months to be able to onboard the major airline carrier that will make the entire industry fold in a domino effect, and that will happen, I think, very fast, faster than I probably will predict. So that's the main thing. All right, I'll forget all of that. There you go. Open for any questions. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Love it. All right, here in the back.
I want to beat everyone to the punch. Are you fundraising right now?
Yeah, we are. We got out of YC 3 weeks ago. We're still in that process. Yeah.
Right on. Talk to that guy over there. Raise your hand, Don.
All right, other questions. So is this your revenue here? A million ARR?
Yeah, so this is the market in the airline industry alone. I haven't mentioned that this is again, the play that we're trying to do here very, very strongly is to be the #1 distributor of the VR experience in the world. And I think that's a very strong position to be in today if we can manage it before anyone else. This is what we have by the end of the year and the deployments with the contracts that we currently have. Yeah.
Nice. Question over here.
When I saw Skylights for the first time, I thought this is a great application. I love this. I had a bit of a different idea though initially, and I was curious. You mentioned 2D video content, 3D video content. What about a beach? What about a mountaintop, rainforest, underwater? Is that something you've experimented with, and is that
so we're beginning to experiment with that. So essentially, our content catalog today is 90% of 2D, 3D movies and TV series, and then for 10% of the content, we're experimenting with a beach, a forest. We have about 20% of the passengers who are anxious on an aircraft, some more or less than others, but that's an important one. What I would call 360-degree videos is a misnomer. What we're really looking for is, plus or minus 30 degrees up and down, left and right. But those are the kinds of videos that have a very strong center, and that can be watched in a sit-back position. So we're starting to experiment with that. So this is really in the process, and we'll kind of try that out over the next 6 months, see what the uptake is. Yeah, and it's a marketing. It helps us sell it to passengers as well. It's something cool. I mean, we all know what VR and AR is about, but we forget, being in the Valley, that people haven't tried this. If they're not hardcore gamers, and if they don't live here, this is something new for 95% of the people that we're showing this to.
You talked about airlines wanting to cut cost and weight and no longer have in-seat displays and moving to bring your own hardware and use their streaming services. You seem to be bucking that trend by asking them to provide hardware once again. And I do a lot of flying based out of San Francisco on United, and their implementation of this program has been pretty frustrating as a consumer, where you never know what you're going to get. And it's not well implemented. So how are you going to buck that trend with an airline like United?
Actually, so United, American, and Delta. Well, okay, I'll answer that question in two steps. One is, right now the business case that we're coming with the airlines is, as a first step, bring this on board on top of your existing systems. Don't wait to refurbish your aircraft, and make it in a way that is going to be cost neutral from your point of view, while adding extra services to your business and first class, which are very important for major airline carriers. That's their bread and butter. That's the first step. The second step, of course, is to really partner with wireless and flight entertainment providers, so that together, on one side having media streamed, and on the other having on any device, and on the other having immersive headsets or VR headsets for immersive cinema or immersive gaming. To me, it's that combination that is the winning combination to removing the seatback screens in the airlines. That comes, for an airline to commit to doing that or to removing the screens is a big decision. We're not there yet, but as soon as they feel comfortable to do it, they certainly will. And you're starting to see all the airlines really considering, on the shorter flights, just basically streaming stuff and not installing the headsets, because that makes sense. On long haul, for major airline carriers, it's still a predicament. And now the second point, which is the key thing, you mentioned United. United, American, and Delta each have 100 to 150 757s and 767s, which are these really old aircrafts, 20 years old, that they fly transcontinental or transatlantic, East Coast to Europe. And you don't know what's going to, these aircraft have nothing on them. literally, or just the streaming over the top on bring your own device. So the pain there from a passenger point of view is huge, and the pain there for the in-flight entertainment manager is huge. We were based in France, which is why until April, which is why we attacked all the European carriers that were around, the carriers that I knew that were in my network. But now our core strategy to be able to close as fast as possible the major airline carrier is going to actually target United, American, and Delta on these older fleets. Each one of these is a $10 to $15 million market just on that 100 fleet of really, really old aircraft. And that's a foot in the door to really closing the American market from my point of view.
Thanks, David, for sharing your story. Can you share a little bit more about the user journey with the product, that you ended up doing your own headset, and especially a lot of people, it will be their first VR experience. So like the onboarding, the controls, the UI, kind of what have you guys done?
So being in flight adds a series of constraints to the headset itself. You need the headset, well, there's several things, but one, so let me begin with stuff that are back end that you don't know, is you need the headset to be certified by the FAA and the EASA. Two, you need the headset to be autonomous for at least long enough period of time to last a long haul flight, or at least to be able to charge during watch if there is a USB power port there, which is not the case on all of the airlines and on all of the seats. Three, you need the headset to be really, really light so that somebody will wear it for at least a movie. That's the minimum, that's the MVP experience. If you can't offer that, then it's a failure. And when we began, we bought everything on the market that possibly exists. Oh, last thing, you cannot have cords going from your headset to various different things, to a transducer, then to a computer, then to, you don't have space. You think of a guy in economy, all you want to do is something that's just wear and play. And fourth, you cannot rely on the cabin crew to explain how this works. You have 30, 40, 50 passengers using this. It just has to work on its own, and you have to be able to figure it out. So those are the kind of constraints that we were working with. So after we bought everything on the market, it was very easy to kind of exclude many headsets that just couldn't fit what we were doing. The best headset that we could find at the time, and probably still is the Gear VR. Is the Gear VR with the phone that we just kind of clipped and forced that you couldn't remove the S6. And we went and onboarded some beta testers and gave them headsets and says, go ahead. And there's a multiple, I mean, if you know the Gear VR, there's a few issues there. But the main thing is we couldn't have passengers engage for more than 2 hours on average. And it's good. It's better than zero, but it's a failure from an airline point of view. An airline won't move forward with passengers wearing this thing, on average, one passenger out of two watching a movie, and maybe some watching two. So yeah, so it was a tough thing, and what we really want is an all-in-one VR headset that just works. And so in the end of the day, what we did is very simple. We took the standard components of a phone, we disassembled everything, we rearranged, we did the design, we outsourced that to a contract manufacturer in China who knew what he was doing. And while he was working on that, we 3D printed 150 headsets of our own. They ended up to be 40% lighter than the Gear VR. They ended up being 30 to 40% lower in volume. They had 6 hours in autonomy versus an hour and a half. We learned that we had to disable motion tracking for 2D, 3D movies and TV series because people do not want that feature when they're watching TV series and movies. So you think, oh, this is not really VR. When you're watching movies, the number one use case for passengers in business is to lie full flat and watch a movie on the ceiling. And when you do that, you get rid of all the motion sickness problems, which is good. But now that we're starting to re-enable it for other purposes, we're going to see how that's going to play. So yeah, so that's what we need. That's what we needed to do, and it was a tough journey. And I'm waiting, really longing for somebody to come in with a good headset that we can just take and use. But UI, 3 buttons, plus, minus, select. We got rid of the touchpad. Plus, minus, select, and you do everything with that. So low interaction, sit back, relax, easy play.
Got a question back here. Other than disabling motion tracking? What else are you doing to minimize motion sickness?
That was it. There's no other thing. That's the number one thing that you will not have motion sickness with the VR headset without motion tracking. And what we find is in heavy turbulence, people just generally take it off. During moderate and light turbulence, people will keep it on. Depends. And the people who feel the least comfortable with this is we're stuck with the same issues that any VR headset manufacturer has, is people who are highly myopic, so heavily nearsighted, past 4 or 5 diopters per eye, we're losing them. Okay, so be it for the moment. But yeah.
Great question over here.
And since you're doing your own headset for the time being, how are you addressing the hygiene problem?
So we're changing the foam facial interface between every single user. So we're not doing it. The way that it works is we partner with a servicing partner at the airline's hub, and they're the ones who do that. Yeah.
All right, I've got one. Generally, how do you see UGC content kind of playing into your platform, but also kind of just as the industry in general? As everything continues to evolve, as capture and create becomes more available with different cameras, low-cost cameras, how does user-generated content like a YouTube essentially exist within virtual reality?
I think YouTube and everything that's going to be YouTube related for VR is a fantastic use case in terms of content. And I'm really, really looking forward to doing that because it's short content. And so for me, it's really interesting because we're starting to fly on these shorter flights, and so you don't have time to watch a movie. So these kinds of content, I think, are really cool. Essentially, you want to be able to use whatever people are used to on the ground, put it on the headset, which is just generally your smart TV, but add on top of that the VR experience, which is this cool part, and we'll see whatever takes in. The key thing, again, is you have content, you want to see whether it works beyond the Silicon Valley and the hardcore gamers. What is the real use and real uptake into the consumer space? Then come talk to me, because that's what we're going to do.
Awesome. All right, David, thanks so much. All right, I just want to pull up one quick slide, and then we're done, and we can go have beer and wine, all that jazz. Thank you guys for sitting and listening to these. Very quickly, sure. Thanks for Orange for having us here today. It's an amazing venue, very convenient. Thank you, Orange. Thank you to the KickFlix team. Actually, the videographers here. We're going to have all of the sessions or everything put up on the website, and we're going to try some cool VR video as well. And thanks to PBR, because they actually did sponsor all the beer that we're going to have tonight. So thanks to them. Big drum roll announcing VR Tuesday number 2. This is meant to be a woo! This is meant to be a monthly event, second Tuesday of every month. We'll switch it in November because of the election. But it's October 11th. We're looking for a venue. So if anybody has an eye on a great venue, let me know. And we have a great speaker, actually. One of the more active angel investors in VR has done about a deal a month this year. He's actually sitting in the audience, but he'll speak next week. His name's Don Stein. So, and then we'll announce a couple other speakers in the next week. So the websites are live. Thank you very much. Email me. Here's my email, jacob@vrtuesday.com. Again, we want to be business focused. We want this to be a community event. Let me know what speakers, if you have great ideas for speakers, same for venues, or any other suggestions on format or anything we can change. And with that, that's it. Thanks very much. Beer and wine back here.